Why America from Italy at 20 years old?
My mom was the first black sheep in the family. And so she opened her own business, which was like a big type of scene, in our family. And I feel like, I even got worse because I literally left the whole country.
Do you know your dad?
I don't know my dad.
You notice things that Americans normalize that might not be normal.
Here in the United States, you generally can do whatever you want. While in Italy, if you do something that nobody ever done before, it's like, okay, let's just wait until it fails.
So you're in Missouri. What was life like in Missouri?
It was like entering in a video game.
Why do you think Western European soccer is so much better than American soccer from a youth perspective and talent perspective?
Whenever you go around on the beach, it's all soccer balls. Like there's nothing else. Whenever you go here, I struggle to find people to play. It's a cultural thing.
Why'd you start doing content when it wasn't cool?
I always loved the challenge of doing something that other people feel like it's weird.
What got you through those times of loneliness and anxiousness?
I prefer to die than to live average.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of the Elliott Caldwell podcast on Successful DNA. Today, we're going to have some fun with my friend Giaco. Giaco, welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
very happy to be here.
So your story is rather interesting. More or less the part of the American dream, where from Italy, moved here when you were 16, if that's correct?
20.
20?
Yeah.
And then been here ever since. You're 29?
28.
28. So 8 years here. Let's start there. Why America from Italy at 20 years old?
Yeah, for me, it was never like a country or a city or a place. For me, it was just soccer, right? I always said since I was young that soccer was going to change my life. And of course, what I always say is that if you had asked me at the time, I thought it was going to change my life because I was going to become a pro, millionaire. And, I come from a very, very humble family and, just be the first one to change our lives. And funny enough, 28, I can look back and can say that soccer did change my life because it brought me here. I see an incredible life here, never felt so inspired, but of course, with different plans, right? God plans are always, you cannot see them, but he knows what he's doing. So the story of mine was always the one of just like a normal kid, didn't have much from a single mother. And so I always said I never rested. I don't feel like I ever rested in my life. Like whenever people were just doing other stuff, I just felt like this grind inside of me. And it's just because, I just had my mom, no siblings, no nothing. So at 8 years old, my mom was working 3 jobs, to pay for our bills and, put food on the table. And I was just having this big bag, this big soccer bag. And I was just walking myself to training at 8 years old. Of course, we knew the city, it's a small city, outside of Milan. But that was the grind for me. It's for me, training was the only place where I was I'm already building at 8 years old. I started playing at 4, and at 12, I had my biggest trial for a professional team. Didn't go as planned, but one of the coaches was you're very fragile, which for Italian soccer is you gotta be kind of already huge whenever you're young because you better for development. I was very fragile. I developed late, and he was look, if you want to have a chance, I think you should go to Switzerland. I know some connections in Switzerland. If you want to leave Italy, go to play in Switzerland. And I was I'll go wherever, honestly. Just I don't have any attachment to anything rather than soccer. And so at 15, I signed with this team in Switzerland. I think I started playing 16 because I'd done 3 years there. And so, it's even that whole type of age of development, I would say that it was weird for me. It was tough because I was already alone. And I used to go to school, and then come back home and just, do my study, do my bag, and then just travel to Switzerland. My mom had to do a lot of sacrifices. Then when I turned 18, I was driving myself to Switzerland. And then...
How far is that?
That was 55 minutes. It's literally outside of Italy. It's called Mendrisio, which I'm very attached to because I feel it did change my life. And, in sports, whether it's football, hockey, soccer, once you find the coach that believes in you, that's when, the player can perform the best. And they found an incredible coach. And so with that, I was all ready to go in the first team, right? 18 years old, 18 and a half, 19. I was ready to go. I was a top scorer, ready to go in the first team. And, for some reasons, I wasn't called up, There's always some some things going on. So I wasn't called up, and I was like, damn, now I'm lost. I don't know what to do. And so a guy knew me, and he was like, look, I know some coaches. Like that was literally the start of how this whole trend of like, internationals coming to play in college. Back in the days, there were not many, to be honest. And he was like, look, if you want to come, just like show your skills. There's a coach from Missouri that is looking for a player maybe like you. I went, I did my game, and I received an offer the first day. So then we started just the papers, because as an immigrant, it's kind of hard. After 1 year, 9 months, I was in Missouri.
What school?
Central Methodist University,
Cool.
the Eagles, yeah.
And then why do you think Western European soccer is just so much better than American soccer from a youth perspective and talent perspective?
Well, I'll tell you, if you had asked me this 1 year ago, I could have not replied, or at least it would have been just like a random answer. I can tell you this. 1 year ago, exactly right now, today is the 13th. Yeah, so literally 364 days ago, I was on a professional trial in California. And before that, I trained for 5 months. I received this call in January. I was already retiring. And this guy was like, hey, if you want to have one last shot, you got to put everything aside and like work. And in May, you're going to go and play. And this to say that I found this coach, ex-professional player from Premier League, so the highest level that you can play. And he had like some younger guys that he was training. So it was like, Giacomo, like, you plus these 4 guys. And so what he used to tell me was like, actually, like, whenever I say that I play soccer, it doesn't sound that cool, right? The cool sport here, like, is playing football, is playing this other sport. And what for me was so weird to hear, because like in Italy, if you play soccer, you're just the coolest person on earth. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you have like a story, you have some achievements. Here, it's not like that. Like whenever, once again, I don't want to say what I hear that people get when they say that they play soccer, because it's just like sad. But it just seems like, less respectable game. And I think it's going to take years. I think it's going to take at least 15 years to change that, Whenever you go around on the beach, like in Italy, it's all soccer balls. Like there's nothing else. Whenever you go here, I struggle to find people to play, So it's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
And, people like, especially internationals, they come here and they're like, oh, like Americans don't play soccer. But what I really learned falling in love with the United States is that I came here, so I have to adapt to you guys.
Yeah.
It's going to be harder to find a soccer ball, but I can still play my sport. I can still love what I do, and also actually fall in love with your guys' sport, appreciating hockey and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a cultural thing, to be honest.
That makes sense. I think from a cultural perspective, like I grew up playing baseball in college, so of course I'm going to put a baseball in my kid's hand,
Yeah.
or you're going to put a soccer ball in your kid's hand,
Yeah.
So therefore most likely my kids are going to play baseball, your kids are going to play soccer,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just the culture from where we grew up and access to, especially being in Florida. They're both very highly accessible, but like in the Northeast, when it's cold, it's hard to play outdoor soccer
Yep.
in December. So therefore, indoor soccer or hockey is very popular up there because of that. It makes sense. Childhood in Italy, what was that like? Single mom.
My childhood was just like, honestly, I wouldn't say the best. You know what I'm saying? Just like I don't feel like I ever suffered or anything, but it was just like I always been pretty lonely. I felt like I was struggling.
Do you know your dad?
I don't know my dad. I don't know. Yeah.
What did your mom do for work?
My mom was like, she was working for Pirelli, so like, the wheels. She had like a good job, and I'd say that my mom was the first black sheep in the family, because she had like a stable job, and she was making good money. But then she was like, I just don't feel fulfilled. I want to do something for myself, and so she opened her own business, which was like a big type of scene, in our family, because everybody's supposed to do like 9 to 5, have a stable job, and I feel like I even got worse, because like I literally left the whole country and really really chased my dreams. So it was just like seeing my mom, trying to learn from her, and I always had this hunger, this grind inside of me, trying to transform it into something greater than me.
One of the best things I like about your story from doing my research is like you kind of have your Italian lens and you have your Switzerland lens and your American lens on viewpoint on things. With this unique lens, like you notice things that Americans normalize that might not be normal. If I'm asking the question correctly, what do you think about that?
We can reply to this like in a general way or in a specific way, right? I'll start with a specific way just because I feel like it's better. Literally what we're doing right now. Like, you do content. I run in Bayshore right now like a lot because, it kind of like it's popping off with my new project. So every 2 days I'm running in Bayshore, and like whenever like I'm not known yet here, but whenever my guest is recognized, like people just stop him, they ask for a picture, they want to compliment his videos. I wouldn't say that like in Italy doesn't happen, because I feel like I always done kind of serious videos, so I was lucky enough to not really have haters. But social media in Italy is not seen in the same way. It's just like, it's a harder path. Whenever I was doing social media in Italy, so I was injured from college in 2021. That's when I went back to Italy. I had different people telling me like, to find like a real job. So I'd say here in the United States, you generally can do whatever you want. And if nobody did that before, people are just going to be like, okay, let's see if you can make it happen, While in Italy, if you do something that nobody ever done before, is like, okay, let's just wait until it fails. Yeah. And the support is everything, especially when you're alone and you just like even have one friend that believes in you. That's everything. So I really feel that here in the United States, once again, I pick this country every single day. I can leave tomorrow. Is that I feel inspired. I feel like I can be whoever I want. And it's just the best country to be, in my opinion.
What do you think the biggest difference is between like Italy, Switzerland, and the United States?
Good question. The biggest difference, I would say, now that's actually a good one. I would say depth in the relationships, or maybe like, in a timeline way. So what I'm saying is that I was talking like with a friend of mine, who is American. And whenever you go play a pickup game, or we're doing this podcast, you go play a pickup game, there's a situation. Let's say you go play a 7 versus 7 in Italy or Switzerland. 9 out of 10 times, someone is gonna be like, "Hey, Elliott, let's go grab a pizza," and he doesn't know you, but it's like, "Hey, let's pick 4 people, let's go grab a pizza," and you spend 2 hours, 3 hours getting to know that person. The second time you see that person, I wouldn't say it's your friend, but almost like you managed to do that. What I really found here, because I like to connect with people and understand their stories. I think it's fundamental. As I played 23 years my sport, and like stories are so important to understand who's your teammate and why is he acting in a specific way. Is understanding the person. And so whenever I go play pickup here, I've done actually one this morning for a video. As soon as the game ends, gone. Like you just see like people are like, "Hey, I gotta go." And I say like, as an Italian, for me, relationships are so important. And if you want a specific example, I played in my last team for 3 months, 4 months. I can tell you, like, I don't know most of them. It's just like, it was good to play. I see, okay, you're the winger, you're the forward. But I would have wished to know more about them. And maybe I could have done a better job. Maybe I should have stepped up. But as overall, I would say that.
Why do you think that is?
I just feel like it's a hustle culture, and I literally struggle multiple months to understand why, because that's a big important thing for me. I'm big in relationships and understanding what's your story. That's why I did my project. That's why you do probably this podcast. Yeah. Everybody's telling me about this hustle culture. They're like, oh, but I understand that person because maybe he has to go home, maybe he has 2 kids, but then he has to do the work and stuff. I get it, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Just like everybody's on their incredible journey and everybody has been struggling with something or is struggling with something right now. But I just wish there could be that little moment, maybe like, if one thing that I would take from Italy is like Sunday, Sunday is just such a slow day, where like you can grab a coffee 3-4 hours and get to know someone. I would say like even if a little bit more slowing down just to get to know who you want to know, that would be amazing in my opinion.
And so America has the hustle culture. Like what makes Italy have the culture it has to sit down and have a pizza or have a coffee?
It's lower, it's lower. It's like why people would live in Kansas City or why would people live in New York? In New York, you get out, you can meet like, oh, hey, what are you wearing? Collaboration for TikTok. Then you go, you have a partnership with like Dior because it's right there at the store. Like everything is fast because like, you're trying to build. I would say like in Italy, of course, it's a slower pace also because you speak Italian. Once you're in the United States, like once again, right now I have a partnership with like Iceland, So it's like, okay, now I have a meeting with Iceland, but there's just like way more doors open, way more things to do, way more things to achieve, way more things that you can achieve. While I would say as an overall culture, Italy is just like more standard. Social media is exploding right now. Driving a Tesla is still new in Italy because, it's all like, oh, it's electric. Like, we hate that. And here, like if you go out, you probably see 5 Teslas out of 10. So it's just a mechanism. It's like generally the culture,
Never thought about it until now, but it makes sense. I think relationships are hard work and relationships take time and effort.
Yep.
And in this hustle culture in America where, the amount of effort we can give to something isn't limitless. Like we have to choose what we give our effort to.
Yeah.
But I never thought about it. Like I have to choose to give my effort to my marriage, my kids, my business versus going to get a pizza after a baseball game or whatever it may be.
Yeah. One of my next guests, because we always have like a trying to break the ice call with our guests. She's Brazilian, and she told me something that I was like, wow, that's actually a good example. I don't know if it's sad or good, but she told me, in Brazil, I know that whenever I land, I can write 50 people, and they're all going to be there to pick me up. Whenever I land here in the United States, I don't know who to write, and if I know maybe 3-4 people to write, I'm not going to bother them. And I was like, that's that was powerful. That impacted me, and that kind of feel like replies to your question.
Yeah, I agree. If I flew back home to South Carolina, there'd be like 1 or 2 people I could call. Yeah, and I wouldn't be bothering.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Wow, you're making me think today. So your story, you're in Missouri. What I like about your story a lot is like I felt like before it was cool, you were doing content, specifically YouTube content.
Yes, sir.
That was 2000. When did you move here?
2018.
Okay, so 2018, 19, 20, when really the content game came on strong during COVID, but you were doing it before that, right? And so, like, why'd you start doing content when it wasn't cool?
I appreciate that question so much, honestly, because it's a big thing. I don't think I really speak about this. I actually started making my videos in 2016. So my first video was whenever they opened, 2016, 17, they opened this new mall, which is like now is the biggest mall in Italy. One of the first to have like international brands and stuff like that, one of the coolest ones. And I was like, I have this almost broken camera. Let me go there with my friends and vlog our first day in this mall. And I remember how generally, especially of course, I was younger, so a little bit more insecure and this and that, but people were just like, look at me so bad. And you were going somewhere, even if you were vlogging, the security was like, you don't do that. My friends were like almost trying to look away to not like, be with me. They were walking a little bit faster. So in my opinion, it was just like, I always love the challenge of doing something that other people feel like, it's weird or that they would love to do, but I don't have the guts. That video I'm gonna remember forever because it was like the most frustrating and uncomfortable day. One of the most uncomfortable days of my life. Literally I was here, let's say I was here vlogging. My friends were like 2 steps away just to be like, we're with him, but not really, like, I don't know what he's doing. And going back, literally to reply to your question, right now we can pull up that video and we can watch me in 2016 doing that. So I always had that vision, but I always loved how and it's so hard to explain. I was like, everybody is hating this and everybody's like, oh, it's weird. I got to do it. And then when I started, I always say I didn't want to be famous. Like I was not chasing. For me, I always say even to the people that follow me, never chase to be famous because then you become famous for what? What's your message? What's your story, right? But whenever I moved to Missouri, so touching more when I came here, I was just lonely. Like I arrived in the dorm, my roommate decided like not to use the dorm. He was like, actually I got an apartment. You're gonna be alone. Fine, I'll take it. I've been alone my whole life. And then I was like, my mom is alone in Italy. Let me just record my whole day and put it on YouTube on private so that, she can watch it. And that was the whole time. I had nobody to talk. Let me talk with the camera. Let me see what I'm thinking right now at 20. Oh, I feel sad. Oh, today the first training, let's see it. And then what went viral was my first training with the Portland Timbers under 23, which was like an MLS team. It's like Portland Timbers MLS team. I don't know where they were playing, probably like, lower division. But I was like, that day I knew that I was either going to go seriously at the trial or I was going to destroy all of my chances to make it in the team, but have an amazing video. Because I arrived with a big tripod that Casey Neistat used to use, the big camera and stuff. When I arrived, I had the worst looks of my life. I can still remember it. All these people were like from, UCLA, GCU, like, the biggest colleges, and they were there, to have a spot. And I was like, an Italian playing with the Portland Timbers under 23rd, nobody ever seen that. And so I got to record this. So I put the camera there, all the teammates on the left, and put in my shoes. And these guys were like, who is this guy? What is he doing? And so I picked content that day. And that video, I think, did like 90K probably like in 2 weeks. And so that was the first time, because I was like, oh, whatever, I'm just going to post it. But people were like, when's the next one? I'm like, oh, I don't know. And I got to make a next one.
Yeah.
And that's when the whole started, where people were just like, dude, we just want to see more about your life.
Yeah.
But it was more just like, I got to do it because nobody's down to do it. Yeah. And I think it changed me a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about it, just how social media. I've seen it specifically. My business partner is like blown up for him, and how it's changed his life. So now I'm thinking about it like as a father right now. Like, how do I encourage my kids to, when is it appropriate, one, for their age? Because I don't think, well, he can do what he wants, right? But at the same time, when should I start encouraging my kids to start recording content? Because I know how impactful it can be. So you're in Missouri. What was life like in Missouri? What's up, you guys? I wanted to introduce to you our done-for-you Airbnb investing service called BNB Turnkey that has massive tax implications. It's basically an investing service that allows you to invest in cash-flowing Airbnbs and not do any of the work. It's best explained in 3 phases. Number 1, we find, analyze, and underwrite the property. In phase 2, we handle all the interior design and construction. And then phase 3, we manage the property on the back end. The best part is most of our clients qualify for the short terminal loophole of the IRS tax code. This allows for average clients to write off over $200,000 in depreciation on their tax bill. For more information, click the link in the description to connect with our team. As always, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the episode.
I mean, I loved it. Yeah. I have a tattoo about Missouri. It's on my leg. For me, like I said, it was like entering in a video game. Yeah. So I used to go out in my dorms, which, I mean, once again, love for Missouri, but it was Missouri, it was not LA.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, the plant looks American, and then I go to the cafeteria, I had an amazing scholarship. Then the lady was like, hey, you have this car, you can eat for free. I was like, wow, it's like a game, And it was just like generally like in the movies. I feel like high school, I feel like it's more like in the movies. We're going to touch with my next guest. But college is still like that. Like you have the cheerleaders, right? And then you have the soccer team. Then you have the football team. It's like as an Italian man, like just like that I was alone in my room. I had no friends. To arrive there and to be like in the soccer team was like incredible, to have my dorm and just like, hey, what's up, man? It was a lot, I'd say, just like as a social interaction, it was going from 0 to 100. And so, it was like definitely like a challenge, but it was the first year in college. Of course, it was amazing. Yeah.
And then Missouri, what was after that?
Well, after that, yeah. So I was playing, Little League was like close to Kansas City. Then my girlfriend at the time, she moved back to St. Louis. So I was like, okay, let me just find a college close to St. Louis. I went to St. Louis in college. And then after St. Louis, there was COVID. So that was a big decision that I'd say I'm international, but of course I know Italians more. I feel like they were either like, I'll go back to Italy and destroy a lot of my challenges for my college career, or I stay here and live the dream. And for me, I had my grandparents that they were old. So it was like, nothing comes before family. And so I went back and, COVID was not like Florida. COVID in Italy was tough. You could not go out to buy groceries without a permit, Mm-hmm. So it was tough. For a whole year, I didn't touch the ball. And so, that was a breaking point because no coach wanted me. They were like, all the videos that you have, they're gone because that's a year from now. How do I know how you play right now? And so, that was one of the first struggles that I had to pass.
And then from there to SCU?
From there, I did some clips. I started playing in Italy. I did some clips. And so this coach from Oregon wanted me. He was like, hey, if you want to come play, I can bring you back to the United States. And I was like, look, I'll come, but I want my friend to come as well. My friend was playing D1. He's Italian, Moroccan. And he was like, okay, let me see if he's good. Let's have a meeting. And, he loved him. And so he got us both. We were probably the first 2 Italians in the college ever.
Oh, cool. Where was this?
This was 2021.
Where?
It was like Salem. It's, I don't know, but it's close to, 30 minutes from Portland, I guess.
Okay.
So that was Oregon. And I arrived there. And after 1 month, I was diagnosed with compartment syndrome. So, after a whole year of like struggles and, being in my room, I go back to the United States and I can't run. After a month, I can't run. So that was painful because my coach thought that I was just like out of shape. And I was like, I promise I'm not. I just cannot run. And so when the doctor saw me, was like, dude, like you have compartment syndrome. We got to get surgery. And so we waited, for a spot for the insurance to kick in and all that stuff. And so I literally wasted like the whole season. And then I got surgery in 2022, March and April, 1 month, my right leg on March, left leg on April. I was alone in my dorms. It was spring break. And once again, what I'll say is that there was like really nobody really to help me. I was just like, under medications and stuff for the pain. My family was in Italy, but I always gonna say, shout out to Aubrey. That was just like a random girl from the soccer team, and she was like, hey, whenever you need anything, you need food, just call me and I'll come. And that's how I passed by that surgery alone in the United States.
And then what brought you to Florida or to SCU?
Went back again, because surgery. So they were like, you're gonna go back to Italy. So just made it back after a year. I'm back in Italy, and that I really thought it was almost done. I was like, there's no way I'm going back. I just got surgery. I don't even know how to play anymore. I got, a lot of weight because of the medications and stuff. Once again, found a team in Italy. Went to professional trainer, so trained in the gym to go back into shape and then, play. And a coach from Florida was like, hey, I'm looking for an experienced player. You're, a little bit out your prime now. I was 26 at the time. But if you want to come, I'll give you a shot. And I was like, okay. It was going to give me, like, honestly, a pretty bad scholarship. But I was like, I'll put all my savings just to do it. I feel like I'm supposed to be in the States. And then after a month, he was like, you know what? I'll give you, like, a full ride. And, that was insane, honestly, yeah.
And what was your experience like in Lakeland?
I liked Lakeland. It was the first apartment with my ex-girlfriend, so it was always gonna be in my heart. Like that's where the first time I literally lived as an adult. I have my apartment. I'm in a relationship. I'm playing soccer in my day. I'm studying. I don't have to really worry about bills, aside of course like the apartment. I liked Lakeland. I always loved to go in Lake Mirror. Have my walks. But then that's where I started like, suffering from anxiety. So it was like, it stayed in my heart because I feel like there was a lot that happened in Lakeland. I was in the school, kind of like I told you before recording, is like, as a graduate, you're almost never in school. And I never realized until my cousin came to visit me just because he wanted to start college here, how young people were in college. I was like, damn, like I just come, at 7 p.m. at night on a Monday. But when I went there for like 9 a.m. to be like, hey, Nico's my cousin. I want to show you around the university. I was like, wow, thank God, I don't have to, because I would feel so old. So it was good. I like Lakeland. I think it's very underrated. And it was definitely like, what brought me back to the United States. So I'm always going to be grateful to SCU and to Lakeland.
So I feel like just from listening to your story from, the very beginning, coming to Missouri, and then going back and forth, there's like a lot of grit, a lot of perseverance, but also like a lot of times you kept saying like lonely, anxious. Like what got you through those times of loneliness and anxiousness?
For me, there's no other way, man. There's nobody taking care of my mom in Italy. There's not a brother. I don't have like a trust fund or stuff like that. I either make it or I mean, I know it sounds cruel. I don't know if you want to put it, but I prefer to die than to live average. Like for me, I either make it big or I don't want to live. I feel like I was put here to just like create the new bloodline for my family. That's why I really pushed my cousin, which doesn't even play sports, but I had good connections in St. Louis. I was like, look, you can go to college for a good price. I never seen that price. Mm-hmm. And then, he picked Italy. So that's his choice. But for me, it was like, let's move the whole family in the United States. Mm-hmm. And then, you can come, do 1 year of college. You don't like it, you go back to Italy. But that's where I see like, it's crazy because the more I do my videos and I interview people, they're like, oh, my dad came here as an immigrant. He went through so much stuff. And I'm like, that's kind of me.
Yeah.
Like my kid is not going to have to struggle like that. I couldn't make money for 6 years because of my visa. So I made all these followers. People thought that I was rich. I posted a picture for my 28th birthday in August 2025. And a guy just gave me a Corvette. I tagged him. I don't fake stuff. It was like a rental guy. It was like, man, love your story. Please, I'm going to give you a Corvette for 7 days. So I posted the picture with the Corvette and my followers were like, man, after 7 years, you finally got a car. I'm like, no, brother. Like, I'm returning it on Monday. So it's like people don't really know my story. And that's not a problem for me. I don't play on the immigrant card. That's kind of like how it's coming up, of course, here in the United States with the podcast, the interviews, because, I'm Italian. I'm Italy from Italy. And then the more Italians I meet, the more like, oh, but my dad is American. It's like I literally left my whole family to come here and build, and nobody honestly gifted me anything.
It reminds me of I was talking to one of my buddies who I played baseball with in college, and we're kind of talking about like Americans in baseball, right? And like, sure, there's a lot of Americans that play baseball in the major leagues, but like per capita, Dominican Republic has like way more baseball players, in the major leagues. So that's kind of like, okay, why, right? And then that's how I think about it. As I'm raising my sons too, where in Dominican, like my kids have access to so much here, right? Education, other sports, other golden nuggets everywhere, right? But in Dominican, like that kid's only chance to escape, more or less poverty is through baseball. And so it's like the amount of work that he's going to put in more naturally than any other kid in America is going to put in. Yeah, I'm not trying to say like there are kids in America that work very, very hard, right? But and they make it. But per capita, the amount of kids working to be at young ages who are giving up their education pretty much to just like baseball, baseball, baseball. So it's very similar and very interesting. What you said is like I had no choice. It was my only option.
It still is,
Yeah.
I still haven't made it, but that's how I see my life. It's like I either want to make a good life and live a good life, or be remembered to at least have tried to put my best to achieve it for, once again, my family right now and my family in the future. So I completely get what you're saying.
So when were you finished at SEU?
2000, I did my master's, so I finished last year. Also because of the injuries, I lost 2 years.
Cool. So May, you graduated last year?
I did the ceremony in May, but August on
Cool.
paper, yeah.
So it hasn't even been a year yet.
No.
When did you move to Tampa?
I moved there. I moved 1 year and a half ago.
Cool.
1 year and a half ago. But once again, I really never went out because I was just like grinding on the videos, all the stuff. I've been out in Tampa since November.
Cool.
So we spoke about some names that of course
Yeah.
we know. Like I met them all like in this past 5 months.
Yeah.
Like nobody knew me in Tampa before that.
Why Tampa?
Everybody asks me that. For me, it's like it's such a given. It's like I think there's a perfect balance, at least for what I'm looking for. But I feel like for a lot of people, it's like it's growing, but you still have this small city type of vibe. Sometimes it's bad because everybody knows each other, which is crazy because it's Tampa is huge, especially from where I'm from. But it's not like super super fast, or it's not like super I'd say distracting, And then I like Tampa because honestly connects. If I want to go to the beach, I can take the highway and be in St. Pete, right? So they really match amazingly together. I'm actually not even Tampa. I'm a little bit north because I want even more peace. I could have lived like downtown in Tampa, but I was like, I like the peace, I like the nature. But then if I want to go, and tan for a day, I'll go to Anne Marie or Paso Grill. But Tampa specifically, I love Bayshore, Tampa Bay Riverwalk. I like to walk downtown and be inspired by the skyscrapers. I'm from Italy. Or I'm from a small town in Italy. We don't really have skyscrapers like that. So for me, it's like being in my favorite movies that I used to watch when I was a kid,
So I liked your podcast that you're doing. I saw some highlights, 2 miles in a podcast. How'd you think of that?
For me, whenever I retired from soccer, I was like, I really was struggling to find something that could showcase all the things that I love in something that will still make me happy. So that's why I kept doing some soccer videos, but I wasn't playing anymore and I didn't want to play anymore. Like I retired, I'm super happy that I retired. And so I was like, I like running, I like health, and I like to know stories. How can I do that? And so, the story came when I saw a video, 2 people that they were running, they were just talking, like there's like getting to know each other. I was like, well, I want to make it a little bit more like podcast. Like, we have like an intro, we have like, really like it's all about them, not really about me. I'm just gonna be the host, and then if people want to find out about my story, there's gonna be other videos. But the whole thing about having an intro, the whole thing about having the highlights at first, having the outro with some funny scenes. That's what I do. I always feel like my biggest gift is creativity. So it just came.
Well, with the podcast being on Successful DNA, I like to end each podcast with a kind of similar question. You're like set up for this question because you've had, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of good times, a lot of bad times, or a lot of successful times. So if you had to pick like 2 or 3 things that are like inside the DNA of someone successful, whether it's you or people or people you've been around, what would you say those 2 or 3 things are?
Perseverance, humility, and honesty.
Why?
Because I'll start from the last one. I used to be embarrassed about my story, like especially coming here in Tampa, it's kind of hard. Everybody has a big car and is doing amazing. And so I used to be like, oh yeah, now I'm working. It's like, that's not my story. That's not me. And I want people to hang out with me or invite me to stuff or don't like me just for who I am. I don't have a car, and I used to lie about it. People are like, "Oh, we'll see you there." We're like, yeah, my car right now is at the shop. I don't have a car. I couldn't afford it, and whenever I make money, I repay my debts. Whenever I don't repay my debts, I repay my mom debts. So it's like car is not fundamental for me right now. And if you like that, that's cool. If it's not cool enough, because it doesn't align with your type of perception, that's amazing because it's not gonna be my vibe. Perseverance. I mean, my story I feel like speaks for itself. Is like I had honestly so many doors closed. I had a lot of hard times with God as well. I was like, damn, I've been working so hard. My story already when I was born, I already have just one parent. Like, why can it not happen? I just had to learn some lessons. I had to learn some lessons in love. I had to learn some lessons in humility. My first year in college, we actually won the NIA national championship. And this is something that I never said. That's just to show you, hopefully, like the growth. But I watched it from home, just because like I wanted to play. That my coach was like, dude, you can stay home. And they did amazing. They won the championship. So perseverance in a way where it's like, I know when my time is gonna arrive, but I'm gonna be there every single time. And humility is just like, I feel like one of the things that honestly I found in the last year is just like, it's so nice to not make it about you. In any situations. One of my latest books that I wrote, even in love, which once again, humility, right? Is like, love is about loving, not getting loved. That was all about kind of me. Once again, perseverance, soccer. Like, okay, when am I gonna play? Or how that person is gonna love me how I want. But it's not about that. It's like, what can I give the team? How can I give that person what she's looking for? And of course, you have to receive, but this has to be the second step. And my life changed drastically in the past 6 months when I literally change the coin, flip the coin and start to see life in this way.
Instagram, is that the place where people can find you the most?
I would say that's the most professional. Like on TikTok, I try different stuff. I have actually 3 TikToks because I got famous in Italy, so I have my Italian TikTok, but probably you guys don't understand. Instagram.
I'm working on my Italian.
Yeah. No, okay, yeah. We can make the next podcast in Italian.
Yeah, I'll be ready.
I'd say Instagram. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming, man. That was
thank
awesome.
you, Fabian. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to follow your journey, and you're destined for success. So
I appreciate
looking forward
it,
to following.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks, bro.
Yeah.